Good to see Brad Keselowski joining us here this morning on our weekly Ford Zoom call. Brad, appreciate the time. Good to see you.
Anytime, Dan. Anything for you, my man.
Well, I thank you, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to start off today. This is the month of the military child, and I know you've got some things planned going on this month. How about you kind of clue us in on some of the things you got going on this month?
Absolutely. Well, you know, my foundation, the Checker Flag Foundation, does a lot of things to support our nation's heroes, including their families, right? You can't be a hero without a family to support you more often than not. And so we want to celebrate them. And the military has what's called just that, Month of the Military Child, which really showcases, I think, some of the sacrifices that families and specifically, you know, sons and daughters make to be a part of their lives with servicemen and servicewomen. And so we've got a number of causes going. You'll probably see some names on the roof of our car. You know, usually they're known for being in purple. I do like the color purple, not as much as my wife and daughter do, but the color purple is really meant to signify those that are military children. I think there's quite a few that might even be on this call from what I know about members of the media. So real special to be able to honor and recognize them. And of course, you know, way too many of them have, you know, seen the traumatic side of losing a parent in service. So we want to recognize them as well and, you know, give a salute to them. So we have a name on our car coming up. I got the sheet right here. I want to make sure I get it precisely right. So we have three people that we'll be honoring here: Martinsville, Richmond, and Talladega. Jacob, Andrew, and Stephen. And so all of them have their own unique stories. All of them are NASCAR fans, which is always great. So it means a lot to them. And we're proud to support them through our foundation, and appreciate Team Penske allowing us to put their name on our car for the next few weeks.
Well, Brad, we appreciate all that work. And I know with COVID, there have been some challenges and there's more stuff that you'd like to be doing, but just these things that you do, you know, can't thank you enough for all your efforts on that behalf.
We're glad to do it. Thank you for your support.
All right. You got questions for Brad? Raise your hands. I see we've got a whole bunch here. So if we can start with one question apiece, and then we'll work through everybody. And then if we've got some time on the backside, we'll come back around. So let's get started here with Bob Pockras. Bob, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, Brad, you know, a lot of talk about when could NASCAR start, you know, allowing, you know, sponsors and some others in the garage. Could you all starting meet and greets with people who are vaccinated? What do you have any sort of standards that you'd feel comfortable with, and maybe having more interaction with either fans or guests at the racetrack?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's standard is different. So I can only speak to my standard, which might not be a shared standard. And let me be the first to recognize that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm comfortable just going, open it up, let's go. So not everybody might be in that same spot, but I'm 100% comfortable to get back to normal.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, let's go to Matt Weaver. Matt, I just allowed you to record, so go ahead and dive in, ask your question.
Appreciate that, Dan. Thanks for the time this morning, Brad.
No problem, man.
You've said in the past that your ideal Cup Series schedule includes like 40% short tracks, 25% intermediates, you know the whole spiel. One thing that you didn't consider is the possibility that NASCAR might throw in a street course race. So I'm curious, how do you feel about street racing? And as far as the 40% short tracks, where would some of those places come from that aren't currently to be scheduled or currently on the schedule?
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that, Matt, I never considered that we'd go to a dirt track. So, you know, shame on me. But yeah, I think those numbers still feel pretty reasonable to me. A street course to me is a road course. So unless it's a street oval, which I don't know if they even have those, but I still like those numbers. You know, I'm really excited about, and I don't know what the update is on this, but I'm really excited about Fontana switching to a short track. I think that'll be really interesting. I'll miss the big track. I'm not going to lie. That was a really cool track to run on, especially as it aged. It became one of the best racetracks on the circuit. So I'm going to miss that. But not as much as I think I'm going to enjoy seeing it turn into a short track. So I'm not aware of where that stands today, but that's one of the tracks obviously that we could pull from in a really important market. You know, I would still like to see us find a way to run on a short track in Canada. I think that market is really strong for us and underutilized. I'm very excited about the Nashville Fairgrounds being picked up as well. I'm not fully aware of the timing or how exactly that's going to work with respect to what date it'll get. But seeing those three right there probably stand out to me as maybe some targets.
But working in a downtown setting, is that something that you think is valuable?
It can be. I think IndyCar's had a lot of success with it, and to some extent, Formula One has over the decades. You bring the action to the people. But one of the things I would say is we have racetracks that are in the city right now. Richmond stands out. Indianapolis is really in the city. It might not be on city pavement, but it's in a city area as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't say that we're devoid of any exposure to that as it stands today.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Matt. Let's go to Claire B. Lang. Go ahead, Claire.
Thank you. Happy birthday to Paige, by the way. And
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
Will do.
So you were talking about the fact that you feel like you were ready to go to open the garage. I talked to a driver this morning about when he thought he would get his shot. And he said, I'm not an essential worker, obviously, and not employed by the race team. So maybe next week. What kind of thought do you have about when drivers and team members would get shots? Have you been close to getting one? Like, what's the story with you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their own level of comfort, and I'm not judging those who have or have not. In the workplace, I don't think we should force anyone to get it or not to get it. I think it's a personal decision that everyone has a right to, and so accordingly, I think once it's open to everyone, those that feel comfortable getting it should certainly get it if that's what they want to do. I haven't made a decision on what I'm going to do yet personally. I haven't been in a position where I need to because it hasn't been available to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a discussion that my family and I will certainly have when that time comes.
Well, good luck in the next few races. I know it's a really, really good couple of races for you. So good luck, and we'll be watching.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we're really looking forward to it, Claire. Like you said, got 4 of my best tracks in front of me. I think I've won at the last 5 tracks, and I can't tell you how excited I am to go short track racing again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And making his debut on our Zoom call, let's go to Hank Kurz of the Associated Press. Hank, it's great to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Dan. Thanks for doing this, Brad. 3 straight short tracks. With your affinity for short track racing, what kind of a bonus is that for you to kind of be in that mode for a month?
Oh man, I mean, it's like I'm pumped. When we got out of Bristol, I left with a smile on my face, knowing we had Martinsville, we had Richmond. Those are 2 of my best racetracks. At Martinsville, we've been just so solid the last few times, and then Richmond was kind of a dominant race for us last fall. I was super disappointed that Richmond in the spring got canceled because of COVID, because I thought would be really good. But I'm looking forward to going back and hopeful to have the same success we had last fall. It's certainly a track that I've had circled. Jeremy Boland's my crew chief, and the whole team did such a great job preparing the car for that racetrack. So hopefully we can repeat.
Thanks, man.
No problem. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you, Hank. Let's go to Dustin Long, NBC. Go ahead, Dusty.
Brad, 6 of the last 7 years, you've won a race by the 7th race of the season. Even with the short tracks coming up here, I know your excitement, but in light of this, of not having won yet in this season of different winners, is that, I don't know, challenging, frustrating, annoying, or how you view it not having a win at this point when it's kind of been your modus operandi since?
Yeah, I mean, I would say right now I don't have a super strong emotion about it. I feel like we came out the gate really strong at Daytona. We were in position to win. We had a good run at Vegas. Not quite as strong as we wanted to be at Phoenix, but still solid. So we're knocking around the door. Atlanta was disappointing, but that's really only outside of Atlanta. I wouldn't say we've had any bad races. I think there's some things for us to build off of and learn from, but we're right there knocking on the door. So I'm encouraged and fairly optimistic. And like I said, got 3 of our best tracks right in front of us. So arguably 5 of our best tracks right in front of us. And I feel really strong and optimistic.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Dustin. Let's go to David Smith. Go ahead, David, you're up.
Hey, Brad, this is something that you've largely avoided in your career, but struggle at Martinsville. For whatever reason, this racetrack seems to throw plenty of talented drivers for a loop. Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Kurt Busch, even Kevin Harvick kind of going through it right now. In your opinion, what is it about this track that produces not just struggle over the course of a weekend, but like a years long, prolonged struggle?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard track to practice at, even more so because we can't practice. But even when you could practice there, it was really hard to get anything out of it because the track is so much different in practice than it is in a race. And that was something that I struggled with very early at Martinsville a lot, that we would be really fast in practice. We'd kind of be patting ourselves on the backs, and then we'd go to race, and it was just, we had meh races, races where you'd run 10th to 15th. And, I think in that sense, it was frustrating, but not awful. And you try to learn from that, and it's just a really hard track to implement continuous improvement towards. I think a lot of it comes from confidence. It's a track that requires a lot of confidence. You find a technique that works and you stick with it. But those techniques only work when you have a car that is good enough. And what ultimately happens a lot at Martinsville is you get a technique, you get a good car, and you get in a rhythm, and someone starts to dominate, and vice versa. If you never find that technique and you never have a car that works well, you get lost. And man, I'll never forget my first year in Cup, really my first 2 or 3 years in Cup, running just awful bad at California Speedway. It was heads and tails, one of the worst tracks for me. And, it was one of the tracks I really struggled to give feedback at because I never had a good car in those first 3 races. And I wasn't able to say, hey, here's what I need the car to do. I just didn't have that experience. And with respect to that, I couldn't provide the feedback to the team. The car wasn't good, which meant I wasn't developing the right techniques. Finally, I had, 1 or 2 races where kind of an epiphany hit, and I had a good car. I made some mistakes, but then I learned from it, and I was able to apply that and run well there from there on out. But it just took a number of attempts, and some tracks, it just seems like it takes longer for things to click, and Martinsville seems to be one of them in my mind, Dave.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, David. Let's go to Nate Ryan. Go ahead, Nate.
Thanks, Dan. Just had to record there. Hey, Brad, golf begins its majors season this weekend with the Masters. So it's a little bit off the beaten path. I wanted to ask you kind of a NASCAR majors question. I know that it's an unofficial list, but seems like there's a consensus that the 4 majors in NASCAR traditionally have been Daytona 500, Southern 500, Coke 600, and Brickyard 400. And I'm wondering, this year with the Brickyard moving from the oval to the road course, would you still list that as one of NASCAR's 4 majors, or would you consider another race? And if so, what would it be?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's actually, I had really small conversation with Roger Penske about that topic as well. And he and I kind of batted that one back and forth. And I don't know if we really even came up with an answer as to, what it means when you switch it from the oval to the road course. Ultimately, we don't get to decide. Ultimately, the industry decides collectively what the majors are. And I think I agree 100% with you, Nate, that of what tracks are considered majors right now, I would say are those 4, without a doubt. As to whether or not Indy stays that way, I don't know. I think it's a good industry question that will be answered with time. But for the most part, I would say you're spot on in the way you're thinking. I've also, quasi considered the all-star races being maybe a fringe major. And so I would probably put that maybe close on that list. But I do love the fact that we have races like that have the history and tradition and just mean more to win. So that's very special for our sport, I think.
As a former winner of the Brickyard, Brad, does the meaning change at all now that there probably won't be another race on the oval, you having won that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I've got one of the oval wins. I kind of hope it stays on the road course just so I can always hold that over some people's heads.
Excellent. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Let's move on to Woody Kane, MRN. Go ahead, Woody.
Hey, Brad, appreciate your time. I wanted to go back to Richmond. You mentioned a while ago, in the last 10 tries there, you haven't finished worse than 11th. You've won 2, including the last one. So in comparison to what you were talking about with California in terms of getting the hang of a certain track, was there a moment like that for you at Richmond, or was it more of a gradual thing?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's very similar, Richmond and Martinsville. It's not quite as cut and dry as Martinsville is, but yeah, it's a track that requires a super specific rhythm and feel. I really enjoy Richmond a lot. It's developed into one of the hardest tracks to drive. I'd put Darlington, Richmond in kind of the same family, maybe Atlanta. Atlanta is actually kind of not the same Atlanta since they repainted the lines, but Atlanta used to be a lot harder to drive than it is now today. But that's a sidebar. But yeah, right now I would say that between Martinsville and Richmond, just the rhythm, the footwork, all of that you have to be successful there is so precise. I really enjoy that challenge, and I feel good about the techniques.
Thank you.
No problem.
Let's move on to Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. Go ahead, Jordan.
Hey, Brad, appreciate your time. A few weeks ago, your team owner, Roger Penske, said that you and him have had conversations about a contract extension. And Roger indicated that he didn't see any reason why you wouldn't re-sign an extension again. What is your viewpoint on those discussions? And do you think you'll be re-signing with Penske?
Well, we've had a lot of talks, but I'm trying to be careful to not negotiate contracts through the media. So I think those things will work out here over the next few months, and hopefully there'll be something exciting to announce for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Lee Spencer, you're up.
Hey, Brad. Hope you're doing well. Hope your family had a pleasant Easter.
Thank you, Lee. You too.
We're going to Talladega in a couple of weeks, and given what transpired towards the end of Daytona, what was the conversation like, and how do you and Joey and, for that matter, Ryan or whoever else that's on the Louisville team handle the closing laps going into Talladega at this point?
Well, I can't say we've had a full conversation. We've had some conversations on, how Daytona finished, but we'll continue to work through that when the right time comes. But, hopefully we're in a position where we have enough cars up front where things like, as unfortunate as they were, happen like Daytona. That's really the goal. Be there at the end, be up front, have a shot to win. From there, things kind of shake out as they may. And the way we've been able to do that is by working together as a team. And I certainly don't want to see that change at all. So we'll have to figure out a way to be able to bring it home so we don't all end up in a wad at the end. But first things first, we want to be in position where you're scoring stage points and you're kind of controlling the top 5 at the end of the race.
Appreciate your time, champ.
No problem, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Brad, we got a couple more here. Let's go to Anton. Anton, you're up. Go ahead.
Thanks. Good morning, Brad. Do you expect any difficulties in getting back to pavement after racing on dirt?
Hopefully for everybody else, but not for me, Anton. I hope they all forgot how to run asphalt, but I suspect that's not the case. I mean, you look at guys like Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. These guys run a dirt race on a Saturday night and come back and run an asphalt race on a Sunday. So, the versatility that's required to be successful in NASCAR between road courses, short tracks, intermediate tracks, super speedways, and dirt is pretty, extensive. And I think what you end up seeing is the cream rise to the top. And these guys are pros. They know how to switch back and forth pretty quickly.
Thank you. Wishing you all the best for this weekend.
Thank you, sir. You as well.
All right, Mitchell Brewer. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Brad, you've seen both of your teammates win this season. Does that give you confidence with how well Team Penske has performed as a whole this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have been in position to win races. Mitchell, I think Joey was really impressive at Bristol. He ran a great race. I'm not sure he had the fastest car, but he made really strong moves. That was pretty impressive to see. Blaney was incredibly strong at Atlanta. Made great moves again to win that, but had a strong car as well. So those are good things to see. Certainly, I don't think we're by any means the fastest car week in and week out, but collectively our group seems to be right in that top 5 area and able to strike when the moment comes up.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to Hank. Hank, you got a follow-up? Go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. Brad, going back to the golf analogy, if you start with a triple bogey on the first hole, realize your day's kind of shot already.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case. I think I've seen Jeff Gordon win from coming from 3 laps down. How much different is that in terms of the patience you need to have there and the rosy view of what your opportunity could be if you have early difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, Hank, the first thing I would say is, if Martinsville were a golf course, it would be a 50-hole golf course. It's a 500-lap race. So, you get behind early, there's plenty of opportunities to catch up. And even to expand upon that, with the advent of the wave rounds and the lucky dogs and stages, it's never been easier to catch up from behind in NASCAR. So, I think having the the mental strength and capacity to acknowledge that, work through it, and play that to your advantage is super important. Not everybody has it, but the best do, and they're able to succeed.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, let's close it out today with Mike Solarte. Go ahead, Mike. You're going to close us out.
Hey, Dan, thanks. Brad, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, terrific. You've been at this for a long time. Can you kind of put your finger on the fact that there have been no multiple winners at this late stage in the season? I mean, are we looking at parity? Are we looking at some guys just simply getting lucky? I mean, where's your stance on the fact that it's been so wide open for multiple or for non-multiple winners this year?
Well, I think I understand your question, Mike. You were breaking in and out. Can you guys hear me all right, Dan?
Yeah, can hear you just fine, Brad. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, to put my finger on the extreme parity this season, it's hard to put it on one thing. I mean, shoot, if you had a deck of cards and you pulled from it, you would probably have the same odds as what it is in parity in NASCAR that, sometimes it's the way it works out. You pull all kings or you pull all queens or whatever it might be. So I think some of it is at random. I think but that's not to say there aren't external factors at play. I think the body change or template change, rules change, whatever you want to call it, to start 2020 on the quarter panels of the car was pretty significant. That leveled the field out pretty dramatically. I think it hurt some teams pretty significantly. That has probably been well documented. I think that's probably a contributing factor. Another factor is the schedule disparity. Huge change in the schedule. We've been at every type of track between dirt, short track, intermediate, road course, super speedway in the first 7 races. It's hard to see how that couldn't play a factor into it. And then there's just some, all out luck factors as well. I think Kyle Larson's probably had the fastest car in over half of those races. And he's had a few mistakes. He's had a little bit of bad luck to where it hasn't played out for him to, win. So a number of those pieces come together, I think, at the end of the day and end in the result that is, at least externally, looks like a lot of parity. But the reality is, I think if you looked at parity in the sense of who's had the fastest car the majority of the races, in my eyes, at least, there hasn't been a huge difference in parity. And that might be a better way to judge it than race winners.